Welcome to the Real Boardloft. I'm Trip Forman. We got Jake Sachs with us. Jake, welcome.
Thank you.
We are here to talk with you about the Valaric Star Cruiser. We just want to point out right from the beginning that this board is not backwards. You're not looking at a board where they put the pins on the nose. Like, that's important to ride the elephant in the room.
This is the nose.
This is the nose right here. That's the tail.
Don't ride it backwards.
This is wide point back.
Yep.
And this board is completely insane. Let's talk about Jordan Brazy.
Let's do
a
it.
little bit of his background.
Yeah.
East Coast shaper, originally from Virginia Beach.
Yep.
Actually, great interview with him on the Boardroom podcast. Scott Bass did an incredible job interviewing him, kind of like really digging in deep. Has won the Icons of Foam Shape-Off in Florida, the East Coast Shape-Off twice.
Yep.
Was in California this year at Boardroom, actually made it to the semifinals against a heavy lineup of shapers. Also third place in Best of Show with his Valaric Oscillator Twinser. I think in the previous year, Best in Show was Bonzer. He actually had a Bonzer in there that made it like to the final round. Really talented production shaper. Kind of has the whole thing together with like models and the marketing buzz and graphics and all that stuff. He's a good listener too, actually. Like kind of listening to the feedback
and everything. Yeah, really impressed with him, and just he's blowing up. Really impressed with everything I've ridden from him. Clean lines. It's got that hand-shaped feel to it. Every model's thoughtful, well put together. It kind of fits in a quiver.
And I like where he's going with the label, like with the Valaric label. Like it's a quality brand, so it's like better blanks, better fiberglass shop,
thick stringers, you know,
better tints and finish work, and like the whole thing is a notch up from where most brands are, and also built to last too. Like I've been hammering on this thing, and like the deck is still in really good shape.
Yeah, me too.
The deck and the board.
Yeah, same thing. I actually assumed that it would be more crushed than this, and holding up well. Everything like rails feel really good. Yeah, just a top-notch premium brand for sure.
To let you know how I ended up on the Valaric Star Cruiser, really interesting story. I was having so much fun on the Crime Evolution 8.6, which is a wide point back single fin 8.6. When Jordan Brazy, who is the shaper for Valaric, came to Reel and was showing us the different boards, I was like, hey, what's your wide point back mid-length? Because I want to have something, when I step off of that board, I want to have something as fun as that Crime Evolution, but in a smaller board for like, more turning and stuff like that. He showed us this board, and then he made me this one. If you look back to the original footage, when he dropped it off, the grass is all brown. This is like in the spring.
Yeah.
And so I've been riding this thing like nonstop, spring, summer, and fall, and just having an absolute blast on it. Not too long ago, he got us another one for a demo, and Jake's been rolling with that one as well.
Yeah, you got me on this thing. We surfed them together. Super fun. The first thing I noticed was that wider tail with the pin tail on it. So it has those hips that really turn. It looks different, and it definitely rides different, but in a really good way. And I was a little skeptical, like especially with the channel bottom and the center fins moved in a little bit more. It's just a very unique board.
Right.
And jumping on it, it didn't have like a weird alternative feeling. It felt really easy to ride, but definitely gave you a lot of glide, and then you could throw it on rail. Just really fun in all conditions. Like we rode it in a ton of different waves.
Let's talk about dimensions on this thing, right? So like I'm 6'1", 6'2", 210.
Yeah.
You are?
I'm 5'10", 165.
And both of these boards are stock 7.2s, which are 7.2, 22
by 2 3/4.
Yeah, 2 3/4. So these are both stock 7.2s. From a performance standpoint, like the first thing that Jordan pointed out, like in the front yard in the spring, is all of the width and all of the area is like, he calls it the cockpit.
Right.
And you're basically, as soon as you stand up, you're in the cockpit.
Yeah.
And all of the outline curve is basically wrapped right around you. So like where you are, like there's no need to like have to get, like you could basically do everything from the back of the board. You could also move forward on it when you want to.
Yeah, you can step forward.
There's just a lot of swivel and turn and acceleration through the turns immediately, like when you stand up.
And a lot of 7.2s, you'll have to like shift around a little bit. Like when you go to do a bottom turn or something, step back a little bit and then step forward to plane out. And to your point, it was all like you could stand in one spot and do everything and just go. Yeah.
So another question that people ask us quite a bit is like, oh, well, I have a board like that. The the Ryan Lovelace Thin Lizzy or
Right.
Thick Lizzy, right? Because
Right.
from a two-dimensional standpoint, they look a lot alike, right? And we asked Jordan about that because those boards are really well regarded, and there's a following for both of those as well.
Yep.
The difference between Ryan's board and Jordan's board is basically what they're designed for, and then the rocker. Ryan's board is much more of a trimmer, like a down the line, like a Rincon style down the line, get up high on the lip line and just be trimming and flowing.
Yeah.
Where this one, when you turn it this way, it becomes obvious. There's a lot more rocker in this board compared to what you're used to in like a 7.2 mid-length. You would think it's a lot.
Totally.
A lot flatter. And so both boards are good. It's not that one board is better than the other one. They're just completely different. This thing fits like tighter in the pocket than any 7.2 mid-length.
Yeah.
The thing that you notice the most about the rocker, like hands down, is the nose.
Yeah.
The nose rocker, because there's quite a bit of rocker up here. And then also, even though the nose is rounded, it's narrow. So like you look at the nose and you see a rounded nose and you expect it to be wide.
Right.
But when you actually throw a tape on this thing, it's actually pretty narrow.
It's pretty narrow, yeah.
Up front, and it has nose rocker and it also has some roll in the bottom. And so what that helps you with is late drops. Like this thing literally just bounces off the bottom of the wave and wants to go into a bottom turn. Like it's almost impossible to poke. You really have to really try hard. Like that one wave that Jeff saw me make, he said like you were beyond vertical. I have no idea how you made that drop. You know, when I was riding this thing back when the lighthouse was open in the spring, like it was like my signature move at the lighthouse is pole vaulting over the front, at least on one drop. You know, this thing just like saves every
would just
drop,
grease the drops.
Yeah, which is, I think, for the people that are pushing it on this board, it's a plus, but I also think for the people that are looking for extra help, it's a plus as well.
Yeah, and especially in beach break like we have here, it was really nice to not have to worry about poking the nose, or if you take off on one and it kind of ledges out, there was no worry. Like with the 7.2, you'd normally think you'd have to kind of feather it or like fit it into the pocket, kind of slide it into the pocket. With this thing, there was no like sliding or stepping back or trying to nurse a turn. You could take off and it was all go from the beginning.
You don't have to like diagonally like try and fit the board. You can, but you don't have to. Like you can actually run it straight out into the flats and come back around without tripping on the nose. So I thought that was huge. Another thing, one of those last sessions we had that I was noticing is like how much easier this board is to duck dive than most boards like
the narrow nose
of this size. Again, like narrow nose with nose rocker, narrow thin nose with nose rocker, like way easier to put under the water. And then you got the big back section of the board like squirting you out like underneath the white water and out the other side. So it actually, for a board of this size, like a lot of people get hung up on, I can't duck dive any more than a 6'4", or I can't duck dive any more than 40 liters. Like this thing kind of cancels all of that.
Yeah, and for 7.2s, especially mid-lengths with the wide point forward, I'll have to like duck dive with the rail first and then kind of like shimmy it to get under the wave. This one, when you're sitting on it, it actually feels almost like a shortboard or like a Tomo with sort of that rounded nose. And then duck diving, it was no fighting at all. Like it would just go under and then, like you're saying, just squirt you out the back really nicely. So
the other place that squirt comes into play with the wide hips, like in the back of the board, is like taking off onto a wave. Paddling this thing around the lineup, like I would put it like kind of right in the middle of the pack as far as like 7.2s. Taking off on a wave, I would put it like at the very front of the pack. Like having all this volume and width back in the board, like anything on the water that's got a bigger butt on it has more area to push into the wave. And that goes from like
fishes,
fishes to boats to anything. Having all this area in the back of the board, like you paddle for the wave and you're catching it, and then all of a sudden the wave hits that big butt of the back of the board, and it's just like, whoa, right into the wave. You catch waves you didn't think you were going to catch, and all of the waves you catch them with more speed because of that pumpkin seed squirt into the wave.
Like as soon as you stand up on it, it kind of has an additional little push as well. As soon as you get your weight kind of over this area, over that tail, it kind of pushes you into the wave too. So if you're paddling for one, you're like, oh, it might be a little late. You go to take off, it kind of just glides right in. I was really impressed overall, you know, with just the performance, the paddle power, and then riding it. Just backside hooks right in the pocket were really, really fun.
Yeah, it's got a nice, like again, like being where that all that area and curve is in the back, it really just wants to flow underneath your feet. And it's like those backside wraps like up onto the whitewater are just
it's just so fun.
With this thing, you know? I think like within our own quivers and with like a lot of the viewers' quivers, like you have boards that you could push on and you get the speed that you expect, and you have other boards that may not be as well placed in your quiver and you don't like them as much, so it like sometimes you don't get the push back, like you don't get that squirt off the bottom. This thing, like with the wide tail, the channels that go through the tail area, and the quad fins, this thing just flies off the bottom, like a lot of projection. And so you end up making sections that you wouldn't make on other boards. The board has a lot of like speed generating capability where, again, like I think Devin Howard actually kind of summed it up, like where he rides longboards in small waves and he rides mid-lengths like when it's chest high and above. Because a lot of the mid-length boards like don't really generate a lot of small wave power and speed. Where this thing can generate like crazy speed, like in gutless surf, like because of that big tail and the quads and the channels going out the back.
You kind of take that first bottom turn, and I had waves where it would kind of almost levitate on me, like off the bottom, where you felt like you'd be like, whoa, it's really gaining a lot of speed off the bottom, kind of put you in the back seat a little even. The
other information we want to share, first impressions outside of our own. Because we've been like having that demo here at Real, like we've been loaning it out a lot, and it's literally been like 1-to-1. Like somebody tries it, and they want one. And then they loan out theirs to like their friend, and then they come in and get one. And it's all been like kind of very organic. There hasn't been one person that tried it that wasn't like floored. You know? Once you get beyond like the crazy look of the board, then and you just translate it all to feel. That's when you like lock in. And what I found is that even after surfing it from April till now, I'm still finding like new chapters in the performance that I didn't know were there. Like the more you get to surf it,
the more you surf it,
you know, like you just unlock like a whole nother like performance envelope on it.
Who's it for, you think?
I think it's kind of for anybody that's shopping in this realm. I wouldn't put like a beginner on it, because I think it's got like too many ponies under the hood. Like that, like, you know, that squirt off the bottom and all that additional speed might not be the best for like a beginner who might want something a little bit more stable and predictable. But beyond that, anybody else that's in this realm that's looking to liven up like this section into their quiver, because like in that time span I've probably been on 10 different boards in this category, and every time I'm not on this board I miss it. You're like, and every time I go back to this board I'm like, this is the one, like this is the one I like, you know. Fin wise, it's a quad setup. I've been running the Futures F8 black sticks, full quad setup. I think that one has an old set of Roberts fronts and QD4 backs. So both of these fin sets have inside foil, which is great for generating speed in like average waves. We've also been setting them up with the Futures Legacy quads and then just sizing those to the surfer's weight. 7.2 is like the anchor size in this lineup. I feel like 7.2 is going to be, you know, 70% of the boards sold. But they are available in like 6.10, 7.0, 7.6, and then we've also done some customs bigger than that as well. Great performer in like kind of small average waves. It'll hold its own. Like I've ridden it like in point style waves that are head high and like reeling down the line. As long as it's not going like completely inside out barreling. Like if it's a turn wave and a down the line wave, like all day long.
All day, I
mean, you were riding it like on that hurricane swell taking off like on the second and third bar.
And it handled really well. It wasn't super steep like you're saying, but just big, lots of water moving, big outer bar, big open faces. There were some times when that levitation, you know, I took off on a bottom turn, it had so much speed, I had to check my speed a little bit. But man, once you came up to the top, it didn't slide out, it didn't get squirrely at all, it just locked in for those big turns. So big point breaks, it was amazingly fun.
Even though the tail is as wide as it is, like I haven't found that slide out that I did find on the Crime. Like the Crime, when you really like hammer the Crime off the bottom, you can get it to kind of drift off the bottom. This thing, I've never had it
no drift.
Loosen up. The only negative that I found, we get really hollow waves here, and so if it is getting completely round and hollow and you're coming from behind it, like having that wide of a tail can get
They
tricky
lift you.
in the when you're in the tube. You can make it, but you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I feel the lift back there. Awesome board, Jordan Brazy, like absolute home run on this thing. We're psyched to have these things in the shop. It's been nothing but 5-star from everybody that's tried them. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So Jake, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your input. If any of you out there have any questions on the Valaric Star Cruiser or any of the other Valaric boards, would like to place an order or have any questions about the boards or get a custom order going, you can always reach us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.